There are currently 7 anime that all have an equal shot of getting into Dead by Daylight. For this part, I'm going to start with an anime that's soon to return, and that is Demon Slayer. With the immense popularity of the anime, along with all of the killer potentials we have with the Upper Moons and Muzan, this is a very good contender for the next anime to be coming into the game after Tokyo Ghoul. For this potential chapter, we're going to be talking about Gyutaro&Daki, as they have a wide set of abilities that can blend perfectly into Dead by Daylight, and it saves any potential spoilers for the new Infinity Castle arc, so I don't really want to go over the potentials of Kokushibo or Muzan until that season comes out. To get started on how they will operate, you will start the trial by playing as Daki. She will have a 24 meter terror radius with a 4.4 meter movement speed, which is of course lower than the standard stats of a 32 meter terror radius and a 4.6 meter movement speed, and this is because since she's not an actual upper rank 6 demon, I figured she wouldn't be able to move as fast or be as threatening with her terror radius as Gyutaro will be when we get to him later. For her ability now, I really wanted to incorporate the use of her Obi Sashes. I figured it'd be best to give her the ability to place her Obi Sashes onto pallets and vaults, injuring anyone who tries to use them with no way to destroy them. I think 4 of these traps could be viable for her, as it would give her a lot to work with whether that be prepping a vault before getting into chase, or using it mid-chase to cut a loop off. And this is pretty viable for Daki as a character, as she was able to have these Obi Sashes all across the entertainment district, and with these sentient Obi Sashes that we know she uses to guard her food supply, I think having these sentient beings act on their own accord and injuring survivors even when she's not there just makes sense for her. I think the last thing she's probably going to need is a sort of Xenomorph tail attack with her Obi Sash, as I don't really see her getting as hands-on-y as I do see her just cutting people down with the Obi Sash like she does in the anime. But with everything like that, I think she would be pretty well off as a semi-low tier trap killer. But we're now going to move on to my favorite part of this killer concept, and that is the way you get to play as Gyutaro. For this, I thought about giving Daki a failure meter, where like in the show, Gyutaro can only emerge if Daki cannot win on her own accord. For this failure meter, I want you to treat it exactly like Dredge Nightfall, where it's going to have a slow rate of 1/4 charges per second, but certain things will increase the meter more to be able to unlock the transition into Gyutaro. For these 4 ways to gain charge, we are going to start from smallest to greatest. So being in chase for longer than 15 seconds without getting a injure is going to raise that 1/4 charge per second to 1 charge per second. This is so obviously if you are getting looped out of your mind by people, you are not getting anything done, gens are popping behind you, you are getting that passive 1 charge per second while being in chase and you're still applying pressure. It's not too much to where you can abuse it by doing play with your food or just staying in chase for the sake of getting charges. This is just a small buff that should be constantly happening for you as you're trying to chase people. The next thing that's going to happen is if no survivor is hit by an Obi trap for over 20 seconds while in your terror radius, you will get that 5 charges per second. This is of course if they're not hitting your Obi trap for over 20 seconds. Not only are you going to be getting that chase bonus, but you're going to be getting this Obi trap bonus of 6 charges per second. Now, this one is the one that could be most blundered by survivors, and that's going to be Daki being stunned by any means possible. We're talking firecrackers, we're talking flashlights, we're talking pallet stun, we're talking head-on stun. Any way she can be stunned, she is going to get a flat 50 charges per stun. This is of course if she's getting flashlight beam, dropping the survivor, everything like that, she is probably losing. So just to avoid this, do not stun Daki. You will abuse this mechanic and she will get Gyutaro faster than she normally should and will win the game easily. But I feel like once the PTB launches and people know, this will not happen, or this will happen maybe only once and then she will be fine. But the quickest way to get Gyutaro for Daki is going to be a survivor completing a generator, which is going to give her a flat 100 charges. This is so at the bare minimum, if people are doing gens left and right, she will always have Gyutaro when there's 2 gens left no matter what. This is just so I want Gyutaro to be coming out every game. I do not want, for any reason, Gyutaro just never shows up in the game and you'll never get the charges you need. This is to ensure at 2 gens, Gyutaro is there. And once you do get Gyutaro, as the charges will be 300 like Judge's Nightfall, you will have the option to transform into Gyutaro. Once you do, you're going to go into about a 5-second animation where Gyutaro will emerge from Daki's back like he did in the show, maybe with a voice line of telling her that he'll handle the rest, and as he emerges, his terror radius and movement speed will be increased to the standard 32 meters and 4.6 meter movement speed. Like I said, he's going to be the stronger sibling, so he's going to be able to move at normal speed like the rest of the killers, and his terror radius will be normal to show his more threatening aura compared to his weaker sibling. Gyutaro will also be donning his signature flesh commas as his primary weapons, and he will have 2 distinct features of his own. The first is going to be a passive ability that any attack he deals to a survivor will now cause a new status effect, and that is poison, starting a 5-minute timer before the survivor dies. The only way to survive this poison is to find one of the 3 antidotes located around the map or escape the trial before the poison takes its course. So not like a pig's trap, you can escape while poisoned. This is just so you're late game with Gyutaro, as there's going to be about 2 gens left. He will have to hit 4 survivors before anyone is close to dying, as they can antidote themselves to save, so it's not just an instant win. And his second ability is going to be his blood manipulation, replacing Daki's Obi Sash tail attack, as Gyutaro can now launch a single blood sickle towards people using his famous signature move, Flying Blood Sickles, which he used against Tengen. This is going to be treated very similar to a Hunter's Hatchet, but he's going to have one that goes on cooldown for about 20 seconds, and this will also poison survivors the same way his basic attack would. It'd have much further range than Daki's, because it's a Hunter's Hatchet, and this can injure and down survivors alike, and with that, it's going to give him the pressure he needs to apply the poison as quick as possible, but its survivors, I believe, would still have enough time to have a chance to antidote, complete the gens, and get out. And with the poison not being a hindrance to leaving, you can still leave. It will just create a very quick game of 5 minutes where Gyutaro will have to block gens and survivors will have to push gens. You will not get boring gameplay of hiding, going in basement to heal, anything like that. It will be quick, calm, basic Dead by Daylight, because the only thing he has is the single blood sickle range, so you can loop him, so he is not going to be overpowered. There's no mobility, so you cannot rush around the map to hit everyone in 13 seconds. So I honestly believe with Gyutaro, he'll be very, very balanced, and it will just be a race towards the clock, and I think there will be some pretty fun builds in store. And with everything together, I think they're pretty fun killers, and there's so many different ways to win with them, because since Daki and Gyutaro will share perks, it's going to be fun to see people running Daki builds and endgame Gyutaro builds, because, like I said, it's going to be an option to transform into Gyutaro, only for the sake of if you were in the middle of a chase as Daki and then you were suddenly cut to a 5-second animation to where you could no longer chase that survivor, it would be pretty frustrating the amount of times that's going to happen when you're in the middle of something important and then it just gets stopped right in its tracks. So I want it to be a button you can press, so when you have nothing to do or when you don't see any survivors, you can then do the transformation. So you can, in theory, run a Daki build where you never transform and you are solely relying on the traps. That could be fun, and it could also be fun to see a fully endgame Gyutaro build where he's running Remember Me, he's running No Way Out. He is trying to keep you in so the 5 seconds run out, but if he does that, you're going to massively get gens done early to the point of endgame just happens so fast. So you really have to theorize on how you want to do this. Do you want to complete all the gens at the same time? Where is he? What plan are they doing? Because another thing, and probably the most popular build, is they can just run a flat, Pain of Rise Pop, a standard meta build, and then just for both Daki and Gyutaro, and then they both can be somewhat fine, and then you can have an average game. And I think that's something special. It's something that would keep a lot of Gyutaro and Daki games pretty unique compared to the standard 4 perks for the same, 7 killers. And I would love to see this kind of theory of 2 killers in 1 come into the game, and I think Gyutaro and Daki have the perfect concept already to make that dream happen. But to kind of top everything off for the 2, I really would love to see them have separate Moris, just to kind of really add flair to their distinctive personalities, as I think if you're playing as Daki, it should be Daki killing, and if you're playing Gyutaro, it should be Gyutaro killing. And you could really show their distinctive personalities with it, with maybe a Daki's tearing them up with the Obi sashes, and then Gyutaro's poisoning them with the Kamas. Very, very good ideas, but I wouldn't be too upset if they just made it a Gyutaro and Daki Mori, where no matter what, they're both in it, and I would be okay with that too. For skins, I really don't have a lot, honestly. You can, the only thing that's pretty obvious to me is have them both look like they did when they were human. And then for Daki, you could give Daki when she had the black hair in her original appearance before she went full demon. But I don't know if they're going to do that because Gyutaro doesn't have something like that unless they decide to do some original skins, but that's up in the air. I can't say anything about original skins. And that's about it for the overall concept of Gyutaro and Daki. Like I've said multiple times, this would be a really fun chapter if they did Demon Slayer, and it would be something I would really like to see down the road. And they, of course, could do so many different Survivor bundles. I don't know if they're going to add anime characters as survivors, and I don't know how that's going to fit with the art style of behavior and Dead by Daylight as a whole. It's be kind of weird to see like an anime figure being a survivor walking with like Rick Grimes and Leon Kennedy. It just, I don't know if it works, but they could do skins giving, Tanjiro's robes and Itsu's robes, things like that. Inosuke's boar head. I could definitely see those happening, but not just the models. I just don't think it works. But that's going to be it for me on my overall killer concept for Gyutaro and Daki specifically. And I really like doing these kinds of concepts, and I will be seeing you guys in the next concept down the road whenever I decide to make it, and it will most likely be either Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen. But I will see you all in that video, so take care and peace.